by a friend to manage his tier 3 European team. And since then, I'd say I've just sort of been climbing the unofficial manager ladder, I guess, trying to reach that rank 1. So I've been managing a few tier 3 European teams with decent OD results, things like that. But it was when I was back in New Zealand for Christmas that the World Cup announcement went out, and part of the announcement was we'll be looking for committees. This is how you apply. Do all this stuff. Blah blah blah. I mean, I think at the time we didn't even know which countries would be invited or counted as countries even. So I was like thinking simultaneously, man, I really want to help New Zealand, but simultaneously, I hope they actually get selected because some years they just haven't. Fast forward a little bit later, I apply. Fast forward a little bit later, and I got the role. So it's pretty much where I'm at right now. 2 years of managing before, and then leading up to now, where I'm at.
Wow, yeah, this is quite the story to have started out trying to apply for it, which is a great place to start. But it was probably around a time when, competition was pretty active around the Overwatch World Cup. I think if we wind it back to 2016, when the first Overwatch World Cup season kicked off, around the same time as the game really took off, in its first year, those are wild times and very dark days, because I guess Overwatch wasn't even on the map for New Zealand. You know what they had instead? That was the collaboration that they had where they voted players in. So it was just by fan vote that they decided who would participate in the Overwatch World Cup. And it turns out that Korea doesn't mess around. Koreans would play the best content creators that they could find on stream. And the reason it had to be content creators is, how else are you going to find out about them? You can find out about them on social media. You can find them on Twitter, which is exactly where you can find us over at Ecopoint Overwatch or Ecopoint Podcast on Twitter or YouTube, where we keep the videos and episodes live. But we also have this recording over on Spotify. You could follow us and like us there. But more to the point, this just meant for us, the closest representation New Zealand had was Australia. Sure, kind of worked, and maybe you could sneak New Zealand in. There was a small YouTuber by the name of Muselk who kind of showed up and decided to play Lucio for the team. But he was really known for Zen and a number of other things that kind of made that Australian roster look like there was some kind of team that was going to show up, but they had their first match, and it was a single elimination round to South Korea. They weren't messing around. And that is quite the very short tail, you could say, of Australia at that time. Just, did they even have a team to compete with? Yeah. But was it good enough? I don't think so. Not with content creators at the time. Then things start turning around, and I think we had our first Overwatch World Cup team in 2017.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes, because they got to travel all the way to the US, unlike Team Australia, which got to play in their home city over in Sydney. And that kind of history is just what I'm quite surprised about, going from these very small stages of trying to bring Australia into its own little marketplace, bring more players in. And it really shows that there is, while not so much the highest demand for it, the quality of the players can be found there. With a little diamond in the rough, OCE, between Australia and New Zealand. And, maybe it might be some other second-rate Korean teams who participate on ping. But no, we could still stand up to them. We could show them what this got. Any particular teams at that stage that you were participating in? I just want to know what is that like in contenders. Not because I lost a little bit of that audio.
Wait, sorry. Could you phrase the question again? I'm not exactly sure what you mean. Sorry.
Just walk me back to, I think, that first kind of moment you got introduced to esports. You said that it was Rainbow Six Siege.
Yeah. So it was kind of Siege. It was just the game that everyone would go home from school, immediately log on, end up playing customs together for hours on end, that sort of thing. When it came to being introduced to Overwatch, I missed all of Apex. I I wasn't looking at the game at the time. I missed the first season of the league pretty much because I don't know, I missed that too. But then, just as the end of the first season was happening, it was a big deal that like London Spitfire had won, and living in the UK and all my friends that were interested in it, they were like, ranting and raving, "Oh my god, London Spitfire won!" And I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. Maybe I'll look at it next season. But again, not so like passionate, really. Either way, the real like standout moment for me was I'd get a bus every day at like 7 a.m. to go to my school really early. I didn't have to, I just wanted to for some reason. And I remember just like really cold, wintry day. I'm on the bus. I check Instagram, and this new team called the Atlanta Reign just announced themselves basically as one of the expansion franchise teams. And for like that week or so, I think it was, where they were announcing their players, I would see like Defran in there, and I didn't even know who Defran was really, but like I noticed that their announcement for him was a little bit like funny because they used a kid photo of him.
Yeah, the Atlanta Reign on their debut. It was what a roster
exactly. And I did tune in for the very first game where he rolled out on Torb on Ilios, and I thought, okay, I think Torb is a funny character. I like this team. So from there, I just followed the Atlanta Reign, and then from there, like, went from fan eventually to managing, and yeah.
Oh my gosh, all the teams. First London, just because, hey, look, I that's regionally relevant to me. Then Atlanta Reign, of all teams, caught your attention. Did it matter to you at the time that you saw these like other players as well, or just as soon as you saw Defran, like your bets were this is going to be one of the many great teams that they're going to be up again't the rest of?
So I was interested in Defran because he seemed to like be a bit of a joker. I really do like people that sort of aren't afraid to show their silly side in high tense competitive scenarios. Like in scrims myself, when I've played, I like to be the guy that sort of lifts everyone up, and I feel like Defran was that kind of player when he wasn't struggling. But while I was like brought in by Defran, what really anchored me was Dogman actually.
Dogman,
and I was absolutely here for his shit talking. I loved it so much. Cruz is a feeder, lives rent free in my Hall of Fame.
It does too. It's so iconic to be able to bring out like the villain arc in you, the way that Dogman did throughout that entire season. And the season following, which was just prior to COVID, which is actually a real good transition there. Were you doing quite a lot of Overwatch during that period of 2020? Or were you starting to start building up a bit more management around that time?
So it was, I would say like maybe from September onwards that I got into the managing aspect of things, because that's when I'd met all these people at my college who were interested. And before that, like I'd say the first half of 2020, I was just grinding out Rainbow Six Siege. I wasn't any good at it, but I enjoyed it, and it was a fun game to play during lockdown with friends.
Totally.
But as lockdown things like eased in the UK, I guess we all just stopped playing it so much, and then I thought, yeah, maybe I'll give Overwatch a bit more of a go, because I was watching it a lot anyway. And then I play it more, and the whole thing with my college team was that the year previous I had actually tried to start a collegiate team because I knew about the league beforehand. But it was only on a really small off chance thing that my entire journey into esports as it is actually began, because we had this. I'm not sure if they're like as popular outside of the UK, but we have this sort of phenomenon, I guess, where people will make Instagram pages of their schools, and they'll be like meme pages, right? So someone will post a meme and caption it, I don't know, Mrs. Giles when it's like first period or something, and it'll be, I don't know, some woman being very angry or something, right? Someone had made like one of those accounts, and in the story for like the Instagram for it, they said, should I make a Discord? And then the next one, they posted a Discord link. I joined the link, and nothing much was going on in the Discord, but it was interesting seeing people I know online already. And some of the people in there were saying, does anyone play Overwatch? And I thought, oh my god, I can
No way.
finally join this collegiate thing. So really, me just
Overwatch.
clicking that Discord link is like what led to everything. I mean, I think I would have been involved in esports anyway, but I don't think I would have like been through the same process, because the collegiate scene that I was in is also really good at educating people on like just esports in general, how
That's very impressive.
to work in your like respected roles as a coach, manager, player, and it really helped me a lot. So just that like off chance clicking on the link, meeting those people, and going through that process was major for me. And I ended up with back-to-back finals appearances in the UK collegiate scene. Not winning either of them, so I'm sort of nicknamed the Philadelphia Fusion of the league. But it doesn't matter. I'm not in it anymore. Neither is Philly. And
No, they're not.
yeah, I mean, what was nice about the sort of poeticness of it is that the team that beat me in my first year with my actual college's team, they actually recruited me as their coach for the second year, and I took them to LAN, and then they lost. So my friends from my old college like to say that it was me secretly getting revenge for them, but no, I tried everything I could with that team to get a win, but unfortunately couldn't just get there. It was literally like a 99-99 map 5 one fight takes all sort of situation, and we didn't cross the finish line. So unfortunate.
As it happens a lot in my latter games as well, that particular moment where that one decision making can impact the entire rest of that match, and it's so late into the game, you're like, should you even be playing as hardcore as you should to get to that moment? Absolutely. And then once you make that final call, this is all in the spur of the moment. That opportunity is right there. Just completely changed the course of the game. And look, everyone can experience it, but you get back up, you rebound. And I'm sure you've taken away with that quite a lot of other experiences into your future kind of experiences. So I think moving into, basically this is like the last few years now, or the last few months now, just looking at Overwatch World Cup. At this point, when did the buzz reach you that the opportunity to join Team New Zealand came up?
Yeah, so right, I was at my granddad's place. He lives just outside Auckland, and we were there for Christmas. Only half my family, because half got split up in the UK by border stuff. They didn't have an NZita, the two of them that don't have passports, so we had to spend Christmas alone. I don't know why I mentioned that, but I did anyway. And I was at my granddad's house, and I just get this notification from Overwatch Path to Pro. I always have their notifications on just in case like OD signups come up or something like that. And it was not what I was expecting at all. It wasn't like, hey, there's another OD, make sure you sign up. It was Overwatch World Cup is back, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's been 2 years off, right? So that news just really came out of nowhere. It was part of an announcement, if I recall, of a contenders matchup. Their show matches, I believe. It's just kind of on a whim. They put it in between the interstitials, like the breaks between matches, and then they just make that sudden announcement. And good grief, that was quite a surprise. Like Twitter breaking from that smaller community of like your open division contenders players and just big Overwatch World Cup fanatics. They've been, and myself included, have been pining for a chance for it to come back. It's just when and in what state. And guess what? Overwatch 2 had only been out for a couple months, and what a golden opportunity to bring back both the communities in that aspect and the player base into the World Cup. And so there's a lot of golden opportunities for a lot of regions to now show and represent some of their best talents. So I think that's for pretty much exactly what I had in mind, and certainly where you've gone with that. But tell me, why general manager? How, when you looked at all the options available to you?
Right. So I had some experience in social media managing, not that much, and graphics weren't really my thing. I could video edit, but again, I knew I wouldn't be most suited to that. But really, it was the case where I was like, I'll put my preference on general managing, but even if I don't make it on the committee, I'll support them in whatever way I can. So whether it's like being a Discord mod, being like an assistant manager or an assistant social media manager, whatever it is that I could have done, I would have done it anyway, just to, like, do my bit, right? And, I suggest to anyone else that's listening, and you can be from any country, and you can want to help any country. If you want to lend a hand, hit up the World Cup committee members for any country that interests you, because we could always use an extra pair of hands, and volunteers are really crucial in delivering a good World Cup team. So, but yeah. Anyway, I applied for general manager because my managing experience has gone beyond what most managers in the scene have done, even in arguably tier 2, where a lot of people will just sort of be scrim bots. They'll find the scrims, they'll post them, or they'll post the tournament links, and that'll be it, right? But without even being in tier 2, I've been to LANs twice, in a sort of managerial role. My second LAN was as a coach, but there was managerial stuff to do. I had to help organize travel for, a bunch of 16-year-olds. That's no easy task. Hotels, travel, accommodation, it's the whole thing was there. And at a really young age, I had more experience in an IRL setting than a lot of tier 2 managers might have in that capacity. And I thought, well, general managing, that's going to go beyond, your standard team manager. That's going to include meetings with Blizzard, admin chat generally, organizing accommodation again, things like that. And, I just thought, yeah, I've done this twice at least already. Some people have never even done it once. I think I can do that. I'll throw my hat in the ring, and if I don't get it, I don't get it. But I'm no worse off, if that's the right phrase. I don't know. It's if I don't get it, I'm in the same place as I was before. It might make me feel sad if I don't get it, but yeah.
No, I think that the phrase that comes to mind, I don't know if it's exactly what you're going for, but it would be just feeling like there was a golden opportunity. There was essentially nothing really to lose if you just put your hand up to give it a shot. And it is very unique, and I'm guessing it wasn't so much your location that was going to be the challenge. It was just if you, amongst other general managers, were up for the opportunity. And I'm looking at how just currently off screen a number of different posts made on the Twitter account. So once you took the reins from the former New Zealand Overwatch World Cup committee last 2019 team, it's still a quiet server, but that's the kind of chance I've seen. You've really just seized the opportunity to branch out and promote the World Cup trials with you and the team.
Yeah.
I like that.
So,
that's a solid way to get started, and I'm really impressed with the production quality of it.
Yeah, well, that's really thanks to EVP, because he is the actual fucking GOAT, and we could have not. I would be hard pressed to think of anyone that is this good in any committee role that I've seen. You might say Christopher for GB, he would be a great coach, but I think when it comes to social leads, EVP is perhaps way up there. Seriously, this guy, he's got great experience under his belt with London Spitfire and British Hurricane. He's produced some amazing content in the past, and he's got all these great ideas for Team New Zealand. And we've got these great plans in store, but it's really thanks to him. So especially as we had to start from literally start from zero, we had to make a brand new Twitter account, and things have been growing pretty well, but in terms of the social side, it's really on him. He's done great, and I can't wait to see more of what we do. Just harking back to one point before though, about the general manager role that I should probably mention. There was an interesting saga of a few hours where I was up all night because I got this email at 2 a.m. This is when I found out that I was going to be on the committee. It was 2 a.m. I just checked my email inbox before I was going to go to sleep, and I'd just gotten this email saying, "Hey, we'd like you to be the coach for Team New Zealand." And I thought, what?
Whoa.
And then I thought, oh my god, I know why they've done this. And it's because in my application, I'd mentioned like previously coaching in the UK collegiate scene. Like the second LAN, I'd been coaching at, and I guess they thought that was, like maybe worth it. But it really, like, I wouldn't have felt that comfortable doing it. But I knew that Joker, who is our coach now, he was applying for general manager. So after a number of emails, like staying up all night to get this organized before the committee deadline, we basically swapped Joker and me around. He's got a lot more experience. He's been in World Cup before. He's played in contenders before. So really, like, he is the GOAT for coaching. Like, he is definitely the best candidate. So we swapped things around, and that's where we're at. As for like picking things up from the 2019 committee, it's really only been Equinox that's still active. I think. Well, I don't really know what's going on with Noxious these days. I don't think his Twitter's very active. He's probably just pursuing IRL stuff. And Fangetta, I don't think she's in the Discord anymore. So really, it's just been
Fang. Yeah, it seems like it just kind of drifted off. And as far as exits go, it was nothing wrong. It was just having to mutual, depart on the social media role. So it's not great to have that just moments before the 2019 Overwatch World Cup season kick off, and you've got all the players about to head off. That would be an extra +1 that you have to consider. And things happen. But fast forwarding to how you got this role. My goodness, you actually started your management role minus X number of days before that committee needed to be signed off. So I'm very impressed you made that call to talk to Joker about that, who was up for general manager. Was it official? He got general manager at the time, and you definitely had coach when that email came through.
That's kind of my assumption. I didn't have the full details just because I obviously wasn't provided like everyone else's stuff. There was a lot of secrecy behind the committees and stuff, and it would be the case that this guy had reached out to say, would you potentially be interested in coach? It wasn't you're going to be the coach, right?
Other roles at that stage, right? So it was just what was given to you. Coaching sounds like a great idea. But your intention was, and I assume it must have been not clear enough to them, and so that kind of opportunity must have been, okay, we got like maybe thousands of applications around the world to have to try sift through. Maybe they just brought up a little third-party program like your Open Chat or GPT, try to ingest all that data and try to find out what is it that Mince wanted to do. Oh, okay, a lot of coaching. Yeah, sounds like coaching might be the thing to pass them up on.
I mean, everything I've seen, it appears to have all come from Blizzard, but if I remember correctly, I do think in the initial Google Forms, there is like a tick box for when you were applying for a committee that said basically you will find for a third party other than Blizzard to potentially vet your application. I don't think that did happen in my case because all the correspondence was with Blizz.
It might just be like a technicality for most, if not any of the applications go through a third-party software, which wouldn't be unusual when you do any real-world job. Someone else can just do that dirty work, and it's only just to see information that you've given. It's just going to go through the eyes of someone else to make their lives a lot easier. So perhaps it might have been that. Maybe it was Blizzard who handcrafted all that work, and as human error goes, they could have seen, the opportunity came up for a number of applications, and finding a shortlist was just reaching out to everyone. All very possible, but I still like the very delusional idea, headcanon, that ChatGPT was involved to say who is good enough to take this role, who's compatible, who's legit, and clearly you sound and must have sounded very confident, and I love that for you. Very, very great job, and it's just from even at that point, once you were given the suggestion, that you've really executed on that, which is really, really cool.
Well, I took it honestly must have been over 100 videos of myself trying to make the video submission, because I wanted it to be perfect. There couldn't be a part in my application where I sort of go off on a tangent, because then feel like that would hurt me a lot. So I would do like a video, I'd watch it back. Nope, didn't like that. Okay, we're filming again. I was to myself, I was the very mean director who needed the shot done today. So I was spending hours upon hours just making sure I got everything right. I don't think I'm ever going to share the video publicly because it,
I was just dang it. That would have been a great chance to pop that.
Embarrassing.
Oh, no, don't worry. I would never want to share that without your permission, but that's just a great feeling, just knowing what that work is like and to really deliver, and you're just like, you got to phone it eventually, but you're going to give your best application. It was just a video and like a written application, was it?
Yeah, so you could do a video submission or a written one. Well, it was like you could do a video sorry. So I did both, and I was actually quite worried for a while, because I did a 4-minute video and I did like a summary paragraph basically of what I'd said. And in my head, I was thinking like, oh my god, what if they're trying to go through all these applications, because if you think about it, they were making the committees for 36 countries, 3 positions for each, and then combing through all the applications for each. And there's a lot of people to go through in the time frame that they had. They did a great job selecting the committees anyway. I think some of the people that are working for these countries, like, they're phenomenal people, and I'm already like making friends with a lot of them. Shout out to Reda, the coach for Peru. That guy's a fucking legend. But in my head, I thought, are they just going to read this paragraph, and they're not going to watch the video, because it wasn't like as detailed, and it got in my head for a while. But I came out with the best outcome. I still got it anyway, and that's pretty much it.
Solid stuff. Now, what kind of activities have you already gotten up to? Just with, I guess, again, still early days. General manager, you're just kind of getting your shoes really buckled into this role. Just what kind of activities have you got yourself into? So I did mention the Twitter, so if that's all it is for now, that's totally cool. But yeah, has it felt like there was any kind of extra progress that you've made to this point? Basically just like 1 week into the first week of trials. And I believe the scheduling looks like that's about to wrap up on a Monday. Would that be
right.
Sunday your time?
Wait, let me think.
I think that would be Friday evening or New Zealand time.
I think if it's, I'll need to check this again. Sorry, I've got so many dates in my head. With I'm organizing a team in EUOD, OCEOD, and obviously the World Cup stuff at the same time. So time zones.
Time is very hard to
general.
think about.
It's very difficult. But I think it should be going on Monday morning for me, because it's Monday evening that the grand finals are, and that should, I think it's already set up to be Winton Overwatch and South Auckland Drillers. Let me just check on Wikipedia. I just want to make sure.
Overwatch. Oh, so if you do have the chance to bring up any info that you have on that, and again, this is open trials. Most people are probably just going to go over their head with all of this, because you see a name that comes into trials, that longevity at that point might be just because they've shown up at competition. But I think these are some really good contenders and good players that have shown up on these rosters.
Sure. We were quite worried. Yeah, I'd love to. So the Google form for applying for closed trials has already gone out. So even though the open tournament is currently still happening, we still have the closed trials form out. I think it's been out for a few days now. We've had quite a few submissions, and we're actually pretty hopeful about being able to run some internal scrims and tryouts, because we were quite worried for a time that the amount of people we would have, we wouldn't be able to run like our own internal tryouts, and we'd have to do things with Australia, which they're fine with and they've agreed to, but it's always better to just sort of see these things yourself. I mean, we may still do it just to have a sort of feeling of where things stand with certain players versus them, because they're ultimately going to be competition for us in our group. But we're pretty thankful now, looking at the responses, that we should be able to be to run these things internally. As for the start date, I'm not sure if that's confirmed yet, so I don't want to say anything. but yeah, I'm very pleased with the applicants that we've had so far, and I'd just like to remind anyone on the off chance that this does apply to anyone that might be listening. You have to, like, if you want to do this, we can't invite you per se. You have to still fill out the forms. Even if you win the open trials, you still have to, just because it's part of Blizzard's transparency policy, where they need to see that it's fully a meritocratic process, right? Like, we can't, even if it's a very obvious player, we can't invite you. It has to be that you do the form, and it'll only take you 2 minutes. So, don't forget to do it if you're listening now and you haven't done it yet. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess because to simplify that, maybe if I'm wrong, just let me know. If I were to greatly simplify that, and I'll give you an example, made up, completely unknown, just a potential superstar, but maybe not. I don't know, just a made up name. His name would be, say, I don't know, Color Hex. If that name rings a bell, that's just a pure coincidence. I'm just making this up. It's just a color in the hex code thing. I've just got this paint application up. If you happen to be on a team in the trials, you still have to, basically, it sounds like you're applying again. If you win the trials, hypothetically, that would still require you to just finish out some documentation. You don't immediately go on like the first plane to the Overwatch World Cup match or the group stages. Essentially, you just want to make sure you've officially got those players on board. You've just done this trials, which is just to even if it's a finals, no matter how it's advertised, you are just players, just basically presenting yourselves to the world.
Yeah, I couldn't simplify it much better. If someone did exist, or maybe does exist, with the name Color Hex, and they maybe also stream, I don't want to maybe come into your chat and have to remind you. So please do it. Please do it.
No,
but yeah,
I'm not targeting any particular person. I just thought that was the first name that came to head. That's just magic. I wouldn't think that there would be anyone else in New Zealand that could pull any of those pins on. I just ran out of names. Sorry, it's just a coincidence if that name does exist. So tell me, what are the contending teams in these finals? Is it now just down to 2 teams now?
Yeah, that's correct. We're lined up for the grand finals. It's a little difficult to scrape the info for Winton Overwatch, but I have a little bit of info just based off of closed trial applications. Particularly like the tank player, I'm a little more familiar with them, as I've read their info in their application, and that's more or less what I can go off at this stage. Is that I know about Winton Overwatch's tank. As for South Auckland Drillers, they're all big names. I've heard a lot about them. Some players less than others, but generally I think I've got a good understanding of who those players are. And I'm just hoping for not just a great finals, but a good rematch, because these teams have played each other. And Winton Overwatch was banished into the lower bracket, actually, by South Auckland Drillers. So I just I'm hoping for it. Yeah.
Yeah, look, for a simple storyline like that, WM's really beautiful like this, where you have that golden glory given to you if you lose it in the first opportunity, because, dominant teams are dominant teams in your upper bracket finals. Look, that's last moment that you can come back. If you've run it down so low into the lower bracket, like just being eliminated that early, Winton Overwatch, good grief, this is quite the gauntlet they've run through.
It's a very impressive lower bracket run.
Bozos, Cosmosis, Hammer Downs. These teams are so great, by the way. Alpha Q was looking pretty solid. I didn't actually get to see much of their gameplay. As you can imagine, that was just not captured. So this will be our first broadcasted one, which is also the last one, but it will be a really good one, because we've got some very familiar names for those who've looked far back into Contenders Australia history. I definitely recognise Nons, but no doubt South Auckland Drillers seems to be the biggest names of the pack. And they're looking like the most likely candidates, let's just put it that way. Just based on the name branding on its own. Just all these teams that have come up. Ground Zero Gaming, Dire Wolves, Maywing. Yeah, these aren't names that are considered underrated. These are well-known names over in Contenders Australia.
Yeah, for sure. We've even got some, like you mentioned, some returning names. I mean, South Auckland Drillers is joined by Signed, who's been spending a lot of time on Valorant the last few years, and he's been involved with the OCE scene there. But it's nice to see him come back and play with them.
I love this combination.
I hope he comes into the closed trials.
That's right, because I remember those days. Dale was a hard veteran across Contenders, but no doubt for Team New Zealand as well. It's great to see him just come back to show his interest again in Overwatch. And then Kelsey as well is just such a iconic name across the Overwatch League. So no doubt about that. This is a duo that sounds like a beast. Did you see much of Winton Overwatch and their DPS duo? I'm not too sure who that is, just from looking at it on Wikipedia.
Wikipedia doesn't seem to have the roles attached for any of the teams. I am a novice Wikipedia guy, so if any of these players are listening and they would like, I don't know, maybe their roles attached here, I don't care. I can do that for you. It'll probably be nice just to clear it up. But yeah, I mean, I don't really know even who the DPS players are for Winton Overwatch, just because I have very little info to go on at the moment. Really, it's just been ONS that I've seen and have info on, I think, right now. If I look back again, I think there's some info on Atomite I might have, but it's just not off the top of my head. So I don't want to go into
just
that
looking
yet.
at it, I'm pulling some fast punches on you, just like a Ramattra holding left click, transforming. These are some hard-hitting questions, but not end of the world if you don't know it. I mean, there's clearly a lot on your plate, so a number of things that have just interested me in a number of these player names is Late Young from Visa Needed. I found this pretty funny. I looked at the Game Battles tournament page, and I thought, this is definitely the Late Young from Chengdu Hunters. Solid player, 123 years old. Gosh, 123 years old. These guys are looking more and more younger, aren't they?
Yep, definitely. Is Late Young actually still active? Oh, he's retired now.
He has retired. He's had it not tough at all. That would be underselling just the experience of Chinese Overwatch players. More specifically, I think for those who are wondering why China hasn't even once been given a peep, there has been some conversations, and the Overwatch 2 servers in China have shut down. So they don't have a way to play the current version of the video game. If there are expats of Chinese players in overseas, you're probably the best bet supporting China. No, but there is also a whole fringe thing where they will have their own qualifiers. They'll be bringing up some players to hopefully form a Chinese team, but they won't be going through the regular process of qualifiers and tournaments and signing up players because, due to the limits of their region. And I don't know if China might even get access to Overwatch 2 within China because of their partnerships with NetEase, who owns the license. And since that couldn't be renewed, what do? You're going to have to shut it down. And all the news aside, it is kind of terrible that a large community that's really just not heard of that often is actually a big contributor to all the viewership and the player base in Asia. Not just South Korea's got some fantastic players, great talent, great fan engagement, but the fan engagement in China specifically has kind of carried the Overwatch League. And so coming into this season of Overwatch League next month, I wonder if they're going to notice the hit in viewership, because that Chinese broadcast is just not going to have the same resources, probably going to be very, very different in how they present the game, the fact that they can't actually play what's being advertised. This will take us back to like the closed beta days where you just watched the video game being played that's in development. I think it was 2015. The only watch. That doesn't sound great. That didn't age well. The fact only fans now exists in this day and age. Only watch beta. That's how you got access privately. Unless you are the likes of Seagull or some unique individuals in the first-person space.
Just to pick up on a few of the things that you've mentioned, and I'm not releasing any confidential information by saying this, but But like, firstly, on the expats thing, like, if you're at university in Europe, America, or OCE, and you're a Chinese national or have a residency card, I would presume is also another way that you can probably do it. Then I wouldn't be surprised if you're then, probably a more likely candidate than ever to, be a part of that team, with the contender circuit ending there or being on pause. Secondly, like, it does seem from Twitter rumors, and you never can certainly judge these perfectly, and it may have even been confirmed at this point, or maybe not. I don't fully know, but from what I've seen, I think it's pretty clear that the Chinese teams will be moving into Korea and playing on LAN with these Korean teams.
That's
So
my
there'll
hunch as
still be an
well.
opportunity for like Hwangjo Spark, who are it's going to be a full Korean team, right? It's going to have RUI. It's going to have Shy, I think. Would it be Shy? I think so.
Shy
I
is
don't
Chinese,
know.
yeah.
I'm not
that
great
whole
with
stacked roster.
Chinese
I think
Overwatch.
I think it's just from the conversations I've had with another Spark enthusiast, which would be my co-host, Sans. Yeah, he would want me to say this at least. The Hangzhou propaganda is to bring Coach Rui, who is a Chinese coach, to administer a all-star Chinese team of perhaps Jinmu, and speculatively bring back Gu Shui and Shy to reprise their godly tank and DPS roles on that roster. I've just seen some... It just seems like you see these pro players and it's like, you got to call them out for their hacks, but there is no hacking. This is some insane flicks that Shy can play on the Ashe and any hit scan that he's asked to for Hangzhou. And yeah, they really peaked this time last season with their introduction of Kiriko into their time in the US, which is kind of insane. When you're a player from that story, Gu Shui... playing for Team China, who looked absolutely scary on that roster with your Yveltal, who's now rechanged his name to Xerneas, and Jinmin, just absolute classic, and Eileen also was a fantastic showing on the Flex DPS, getting the whole team up to second place against US with their first championship in 2019. And that leads me going way back to what you've just mentioned, some really fantastic points about being a player in other regions, or you are living with different ethnic origins, right? There's a case for Hydration. He could have played for a South American team, but he was offered a spot with
he's also
Team
Brazilian,
USA. Yes, Brazilian. And yeah, Hyperflex for his day, for his time. I think he gave it a good shot, and that was before... if you're Team USA. I think the story at the time was, they're just going to beat everyone. They're just here to show up against Team South Korea because they needed that grudge match ASAP. They were going to BM all the teams that were going to be in their way. There was no stopping them against Team UK. But I think if you recall how that story went, Team UK had some proper experience from Boombox on the Moira, and these guys were suddenly playing free tanks and free supports. And from there, that changed the lives of those UK players forever.
Yeah. I mean, you've kind of just reminded me. There will be a lot of people this World Cup that are going to be playing from not just different countries, but for example, there might be someone in France who plays for UK, but there could be people who are living in different regions that will be playing for their national team. So, for example, I'm not playing, but I'm on a committee. I'm region, I'm an EU, but I'm going to be helping an OCE team, right? But I know, for example, and this might interest some of our viewers, the streets are talking about Team India, and what I'm hearing is a lot of players from NA and EU, who obviously have OCI cards or citizenship or passports, whatever, will be joining Team India. And I'm by no means an expert on Team India, but I know that the outcome of this will probably be the best Team India roster that we've probably ever seen. What I'd say is that without World Cup for so long, there's been almost how do I put it? It's like with the game having a few dark years, like the dark ages of Overwatch, which also included World Cup not being a thing. A lot of countries have sided to Valorant, the dark side, or people have just lost interest, and that's meant that a lot of countries are missing players in crucial roles, or maybe they have a lot of people in these roles, so people will have to flex around. So I think this year will provide like a kind of a mix and mash where you get people from all over the world, but people also role swapping to fit needs and things like that. And we're in a very privileged position, New Zealand. I don't think we quite realize it, but we've actually got a lot of talent to like fill out the roles that we would need. But you know, there are a lot of countries out there. I'm good friends with the guys that are very likely to be running Team Ireland. They had like a previous run in the European Invitational Championship, which was like I guess you could call it the Euros if this is the World Cup. And they ran this team called Team from Ireland, and in that team, there were literally no Irish DPS. They had to get an off tank and a flex support to role swap. Because, you know, there just hasn't been the options for a while. I mean, arguably there's Grathan, but he wasn't interested at that point. So, if you know what I mean, it's like...
Oh, okay. Okay, so I guess just to recap, you're saying that Team India
this year,
and there's a tweet that's just come out 2 hours ago announcing their World Cup Trials tournament winners, and, you know, could potentially be their pickups, that you reckon this Team India is going to be, like, unlike anything we've seen before? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes. Look, I don't have 100% of the details, of course, but I just hear rumors here and there. And what I'd say is that you can look at these players that have just won the Team India Trials tournament, and you know some of those players might get into the roster. But when you look at the bigger picture of more regions, you notice that there are people like the biggest name would probably be Moving Fish 7. Dude's only 17 years old right now, but I think he's going to be World Cup eligible. He's won contenders at least once with Redbird Esports. Other people, Captain Prash, fucking love that guy. He's the GOAT of the EU. He's a main sport player. Like there are good names out there, like Pummy as well, that would probably be playing on ridiculous ping, but are good players and might even be able to like push through that to get good results for Team India. So obviously the Open Trials tournament is finished in India. And I don't know personally those players that have won it, but I haven't seen accolades from them similar to or justifiably like as good, I guess, as these players that might be playing cross-region in the group stage. So what I'd say is just don't look at our group right now and assume BlizzCon or wherever it's going to be is in the bag, right? Like it's really not. There's a great case for some of these other countries like Thailand as well, where you really have to think, okay guys, we haven't earned anything yet. We really just have to earn it. We have to fight for this so hard, and it's important that we don't doubt any opponents, because that's the last thing we want. We don't want to go into a game and already lose map 1 because we just thought, oh, this will be a roll, right? Like there's a lot more to it than a lot of people probably think, and I'd say like you don't have to be James Bond and be spying on all these teams, but just keep your ears and eyes open.
I really don't want it to be the game of like cloak and daggers trying to work out to get the information you require to take advantage. It should just be all about the sportsmanship in a game like this. But you know, sportsmanship on this has been kind of wild. If you followed the last season or your debut season of Overwatch 2 pro players, Florida Mayhem playing a illegal maneuver on Circuit Royale. It was where they foisted together a Symmetra teleporter up onto a roof, followed by a Mei who teleports up to that roof. Or no, I believe it is a ice wall that goes right up there to put a teleport on top of the Mei wall. And then the whole team completely just dives straight into Paris Eternal, right from the mansion, sort of like shortcut right there. Instead of going through it like anyone normally does, that teleporter up from the top, they completely take them down from the high ground. So, and calls like that, you know, they have to be made. Like, that's not a standard maneuver to Overwatch League, but in Contenders has traditionally been played out, and not a single one had thought that was a objectionable strategy. And so in instances like that, hopefully that's not something you actually have to administer any trouble with, because great players will just become great players for playing what's in the environment. But hopefully, won't be seeing any of the kind of abuse of maps or glitches that can come with certain heroes, which has happened in previous World Cups. So I want to put it to this way, just about that topic. If you find that maybe one of the teams is being called out for potentially misuse or a modification of their mouse or hardware, at this point, as a manager, you would have just found out that, oh, okay, is it my team or is it someone else's team? Just someone in this group has been made aware that someone's got hacks going on. What, in your sense, is the best way you'd handle that as a manager? I'm not giving a whole lot of information, but we can try and narrow that down to something more specific here.
So everyone's going to have like their own way of handling things, and I'm much more of a diplomat than a dictator when it comes to those kind of scenarios. I mean, with 2 years in the UK collegiate scene, we've seen like I've seen like a lot of accusations thrown around, or people are accusing other people of using game bugs to gain an advantage, or swapping in players that shouldn't be in their rosters and things like that. And from all that experience, I've gained a good way of learning how to really like get what's best from the admins, because at the end of the day, that's really what you want for your team. I mean, I'm not saying, for example, like I don't know, like rulebook a team unfairly, right? Like I'm not going to do that. I always want real competitiveness in my games. But if we have a situation where, you know, someone's accused of cheating or something like that, my first port of call isn't, you know, straight to the head admin banging on his door saying, what the hell, this guy's cheating, before, like, you know, we've even looked at the footage, or we've even spoken to the enemy team first, right? Like, if we had suspicions about someone using a cheat or a game bug or whatever it's going to be, let's just cut the drama out, speak to that team first and say, hey, we're a little bit curious about whatever this was, and just try and see what they have to say first, because, again, we don't want the cloak and dagger stuff where, you know, it's straight to the nuclear launch button, right? Like, we just want a clean World Cup as much as it can, you know, be a thing. So if anything were to happen in the group stages or anything like that, I think, you know, there's going to be an admin at least one in every single game that gets played, but there's obviously going to be more, and there'll be coaches watching, all the players in the lobby. I mean, I think anything that could happen is going to be spotted pretty quickly and would be paused to resolve the issues. Obviously, it hasn't really been a thing that's passed through my mind so far, but, you know, any kind of issues where we would have to, there's a great word for it, but I've not got it this early in the morning.
It's okay. Try to narrow it down for me. Try to verbalize it. Be as close as you can.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, if we ever saw an opportunity, or maybe not an opportunity, but we saw like a reason to you know, call up the admins, then it would really be something that we would only go to the admins if we had to, right? Like, simultaneously, I would fully understand like people's frustrations if NZ was, you know, screwed out of making it to the top 16 and going to LAN over, say, like a small thing. Like, for example, maybe a team pulls out the Florida strat, and the admins see no issue with it. I would fully object to that, right? But if it's something where we're not certain, my first port of call is not going to be, you know, banging on Blizzard's door saying, hey, we think this player might be cheating, ban him, do all this, do all that, right? Like, I'm always going to seek like the most constructive solution to these issues over, you know, pressing the big red button. So,
you know, if for someone who didn't have the word, I think you kind of got out exactly what I think I was visualizing really, really well. And even with such a vague concept that I just threw at you, that's the thing that I'm trying to immerse myself in, and that kind of did it for me. It's knowing that it's still a leadership role, and I clearly can tell that you've got the experience to back it up. And the kind of way that you deal with it, it really depends on the person. So no real wrong answer on that one, and I just really liked your take on that. It was really, really neat. And as far as just kind of the golden opportunities that New Zealand's basically been afforded, just working with LPL, great partnerships to make the open trials happen. So shout out to LPL on their part for working with all the other countries as well, because I think they usually do a lot of Australia, New Zealand generally, but branching out and making that available to trials for all the different countries that they look after is pretty much a big solid as far as tournament organizing goes. Have you basically worked or interacted with them during the trials, or is it all just like on the outside looking in when it comes to that trial tournament organization?
Yeah, so for the duration of the closed trials, I haven't really had direct contact with the admins, I'd say. We were asked if we would like Blizzard asked if we would like, on our behalf, them to ask each of our tournament organizers to reserve a slot for general managers and head coaches, and I requested that through Blizzard, but ultimately decided probably not best to, just because if I were to be watching any of these games, in a custom game, it would be on super high ping. I wouldn't really be seeing what's best for me. I'm not sure if Joker has used that ability and has been spectating any. But regardless of that,
EVP might have done some of those early games, just from my conversations with EVP. So that would then make sense. Yeah, that's how you got your gameplay footage. And I presume hopefully replay codes are kind of shared for that, or was that generally taboo? So
EVP has been asking for replay codes, and that's how we got started with the initial content. And there should be more content coming forwards, coming out at the finals. So I mean, amongst like the replay codes, I've also been tuning into people's streams quietly. You may not have even realized it, but I may have been watching your games. Just because if I were to spectate through the lobby anyway, it would feel a little bit weird for me and a little bit intimidating. I just want to see how you guys perform without that pressure at the moment. And also, for the ping reasons, it helps me a lot more to just watch it through, a Twitch live stream over being in the lobby, because then things will get really choppy. So
it's just seeing someone in their elements, and the watching part is just quite literally Overwatch, right? The whole technical term of Overwatch, which the game is inspired by, is just being on like surveillance in a sense that it's helping the team as a defensive maneuver. In a military sense, it's literally undermentioned how Overwatch has been used in other video games to mean that kind of like security third-party service called Overwatch, and I've seen people get really confused when they get Dota recommendations because Overwatch is the name of their security system. And we have Defense Matrix, and I guess that's probably more for me looking at how you think competitive has looked, at least from your gaming experience of Overwatch. Are you still, you reckon, at a pretty good spot? Do you think matchmaking has been pretty good? So step back out of Overwatch League for a second. How's your game been? You've been working on your game?
So it's been quite a while since I've really had the sort of like player grinding experience. I was never ever anything super special, even at my peak. But I was like a low GM player, and I was pretty happy with that. I haven't reached anywhere near that level these days, and I'm quite washed. I'm honestly pretty busy with managing and stuff to comment too much on that. But what I would say is that it's not just an issue for obviously the players in the top 1%, that are getting diamond players in their games, but it's for me, like, I used to be a main support player. Now I just sort of play flex DPS for fun. I'm much lower on that than I am on main support still, so I'm like a low diamond on that, but I'll still get like I get the other end of those experiences where I'm thrown into those lobbies and I feel bad for being there. Obviously there's maybe 8 players in there that are all GM plus, and then me and one other guy that are diamond, and we just sort of running
really
around
out of place. You're just running around like headless chickens.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, EU ranked, like in most games, is generally quite toxic. But when it's come to these players who get forced into people's games, I've been very lucky that none of these, top level players that I've had to run into while I'm off rolling have made any rude comments to me about being in the game. Like, they understand that it's not my fault simultaneously. So I'm grateful for that I'm not getting hassled in that way.
Yeah, I imagine the toxicity can only get so far when the reality is this person's just playing the game, man. This person's just fast queue times, or do you want the games to be as fair as possible, no matter how long? If you had infinite amount of patience to queue up, I don't think people would spend the whole day to just sit on queue for that perfect balance and perfect harmony.
Okay. Well, I'd say like, look, I mean, it's actually got its benefits the way that matchmaking is right now to the OCE region, in a sense anyway, that like queue times could be ridiculous, above GM and sometimes even below, and while this hasn't made it like 2-minute queues, it has brought it down quite a lot for a lot of people. So I think that like, for a lot of people that are just sick of being in those super long queues on OCE servers, it kind of helps. I mean, I think it's more of a short-term benefit, really, because those players will eventually get fed up with it and then either want those longer queues back for their own server, or they're going to want to just, VPN to NA or to Korea again. So, I mean, it honestly has more benefit to a smaller, like, populated server region than other places, but again, it's like long term not better. And I think we've seen like the evidence of shorter queue times versus like more balanced matchmaking, and it's the case that like, okay, it is what we thought it would be for so long, and that's the case that if you want short queue times, you're going to have to get these players. And from the way that people are talking about it and the way that I've experienced it, certainly, I wouldn't mind going back to the way things were before. In fact, I'd like it quite a lot.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now I see we've got a little rift here. A good one at that. On two different sides here. And at least to find some neutral ground here, what I find is really great is the conversations that we're having straight from the director. Formerly Jeff Kaplan in that role is now Aaron Keller. And honestly, I think he's managed to find himself in a spot where when he did his first few sort of videos and way before Overwatch 2 released, it was really him trying to find his footing, where Jeff Kaplan had that spot for a good 3-4 years in that position publicly, whereas the release of Overwatch 2 was like basically attached to Jeff Kaplan. And then how do you transition to it being Overwatch 2 now under Aaron Keller? I think what's now starting to be very great with his presence is just these directors sort of like commentary, his own experience looking back at his data and what he sees about the game that we don't, and his perspective on what that all meant to us and why it looks so strange to us that we get these weird matchmaking labels. So I've just got this good paragraph here, just reading from that article. So Aaron Keller, he states, we made some big changes to the matchmaker. A primary goal was to optimize the pairing of players to minimize the MMR difference within a specific role. For example, when making matches, we put more emphasis on the DPS players on each team being closer in skill than we do the DPS players on one team being evenly matched with tank players on the other team. It's worked, and matches have a much tighter skill delta between players of that same role. But there have been some other positive effects of these changes in ranked queue times, high skill matchmaking. They've dropped significantly. Average match quality has risen across the board, and matches with longer queue times are typically of a higher quality now than they were previously. The longer a player waited, the looser our restrictions on the skill difference could potentially be. This is still true, but that range should be more condensed. However, there have been some downsides to those changes, some of them a bit unforeseen. Queue times risen in unranked. Groups with large skill differentials have risen quite a bit. They have made some changes, and queue times for unranked are already moving lower. We've also heard from players that they're experiencing large win and loss streaks in the game. To be clear, we don't try to cause or prevent streaks based on an ideal win rate for players. We're studying these reports, and we'll share more information when we get it. So as this kind of like outlining of what I think everybody is kind of going through and trying to rein it all together just from their thoughts and how that is going to be useful for them. Even if it's not going to be a immediate fix, at least they're aware of it. And I think that's the transparency I'm really impressed by, that Aaron can dish out as often as he can, because I imagine working on the game is important. It's another thing to actually tell them what are they working on and why that's going to be relevant to us as the players. Because it otherwise might sound like excuses that I was like, well, we can't do anything now because we got to wait till a mid-patch. Before, they didn't even intend on it being a mid-patch cycle between seasons. They'd do like significant changes per season. If there were some bugs or hotfixes they do that as they go. And what we've seen in reality is after the end of Season 1, which was the most amount of Sombra playtime I've ever had, let alone on DPS, like just queuing up for DPS was one thing. Now you are getting some great queue times just shortened down. But like Aaron Callis says, is this the kind of thing that you are looking forward to? Just going back to your words, you say it would be nice to go back to it. And do you reckon the quality of the matches just felt more like traditional Overwatch in a 5v5, and that gameplay was just much needed?
Yeah, I mean, the grass is always greener on the other side is a pretty good phrase to come back to here. I may be seeing the past, like the beginning of Overwatch 2 with rose-tinted glasses. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't necessarily impact me as much anyway, as I'm not really an active player anymore, and I only do it in my own free time. But even then, I don't want my gameplay or my matchmaking to be a lot worse. But on top of that, anyway, I don't want my players to feel boomed. If they want to grind out, 4 hours a day outside of scrims, I don't mind them doing that, but on the other hand, I also want what's best for them, and if they're telling me what's best, is like the old system, previous to this, then, obviously, like, I'll support that. I think, like, there's actually a level of politics in Aaron's job that people don't appreciate, and that's just these people who have to head the sort of face of games, like Riot Supercakes for Valorant, or Aaron Keller in this case. That there is a lot more politics to it than you think, and it's about being a really good communicator and a leader for your product. And I think as time's gone on, Aaron and his team have done a really good job at being good communicators of what's going on. I think these days most people's grievances with Blizzard that I've seen tend to be more towards balance changes and things like that. But even then, I feel like there's not even been that much discussion about that recently. I feel like most of the discourse has been around, the quality of matchmaking, which for a lot of people that I know, they don't enjoy. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to throw too much more of a stake into the whole thing. It's not a direct thing to me, but like it sort of has an indirect effect on me with my players, and I want what's best for them. And I would think that would be the previous system of rank, despite claims of better quality matchmaking. It really does make me think that like a lot of the time we've had these things where it's in the past been that whether it's balance changes or the current matchmaking, as it's been described by Blizzard, generally being better. Well, it may be better for the majority of players, but it's really hurting those people that are, grinding your esport, the people that are devoting their lives to this, the people that a lot of the casual players do look up to anyway. Like, you can be like an arcade player and still follow Overwatch League esports, but if those players feel so burnt out and they leave the game so frequently because of imbalanced matchmaking, poor character design, or things like that generally, then it does affect you as a player in the majority. If you're a standard like most common rank like gold or plat, these things do trickle down to make the game worse for you. So while things might be quicker for you in the short term, I think personally that it all comes back to you. And I'm trying to be really careful here because I don't want to like be blaming people in common ranks, but I'm just saying that like it's a lot of people have this misconception, right? Like
there's a lean to an opinion that sounds like pointing the finger at someone, but I know that's where you deep down that's not where it's going.
Yeah,
certainly not the way that
I'm really not blaming anyone here.
Yeah, I won't take the words of someone named after a pie as the one and true goat of opinions, right? But in a very sense, I do think that is a really important thing to differentiate your casuals, your pros, and then you've got your. It's like that even higher setting of the competitive ladder, just up above the pros, right? People who want to. I guess content creators is probably in that spectrum, but not just only at the very top of the gameplay, but the more social aspect that finds itself inside of Overwatch League here and there sometimes. These guys do want to play this on the regular. There's only reasons to provide criticism if it was going to help Overwatch in itself as an ecosystem or as a game.
Yeah, I'm generally quite forgiving of dev decisions in most things, whether it's Valorant or Overwatch or even Siege, for example. Like in Valorant, there's a lot of criticism right now over the lock-in event, which is a single limb 32 team tourney, and all these people, all the fans and players included, are having a go at Riot as soon as they go out in the round of 32 or round of 16, sorry, where they'll at Riot on Twitter and say, "Very cool format. I'm so happy to go home after just playing 2 maps." And it's like, I don't think people fully appreciate like the full level of thought that has to go into these things anyway. But on the other hand, like it's like people in positions of power in gaming can make these mistakes and maybe do more often than you think. For like the Valorant lock-in scenario, it's like that event, the reason why it's single limb, the reason why it's 32 teams is because all those teams need to acquire visas and go through a process of resettling players all across the world, and they need a few months to do that. So in the short term, rather than moving all those players to LA or Berlin or Seoul in Korea,
that's really expensive to go.
Exactly. Like they're bringing them to Korea for now. No, sorry, Brazil for now.
Yes, Brazil
for a short event
for an esports league, right? They're building it artificially. The esports mecca of South America.
Yeah. Well, Brazilian fans are really, really, really good fans to have on your side, in any esport. I mean, I come from Siege originally, and the Brazilian fans in that were, some of the most passionate. So when Team Liquid, I think they won a major. It's been so long ago now. There was a really big sense of pride that you could feel, and as someone that wasn't South American, I could appreciate for them that, wow, like this region is just, they're so passionate and they just won this title. I'm happy for them, so I'm also hoping to see the Brazilian committee at LAN, because those guys were also really chill. Maybe some Brazilian fans, who knows.
Yeah, no, shout out to all the countries who get the chance to have a listen to this. I greatly respect every single country I can get my my little gremlin hands on as a content creator. Nothing more. I'm really not something that's worth chasing up for any entertainment, but the fact that I get the chance to and just say hi, maybe you guys want to share your thoughts like yourself, Mince. It's really, really awesome. And it's really great to get your understanding, your empathy, and your knowledge around this space. As hopefully we got more to look forward to into 2023. Like, it's only February, but yeah, come end of next week, it's March already. Third of the way into the year, and things just keep ticking along. And I hope that the opportunities that come to Team New Zealand really come to fruition this year.
Yeah, I mean, if this format is repeated in future years, that's fantastic for the scene, because, I mean, just having a New Zealand only tournament, right? Like not a region-wide OCE tournament. It's really good at nurturing that Kiwi talent that we otherwise wouldn't be able to do as much, because I mean the region is pretty dominated by Australia and also the Koreans that seem to hop into contenders. So it's the case that if we have these open trial tournaments every year, just in the way that people will practice for OD on a region-wide level, Kiwis here will be able to, be ready to practice for the next trials tournament and then hope to get really good results in that. So if this is a thing that continues, because I know World Cup format changes every single time, but I'm really hoping that this, $2,000 prize pool open trial tournament is a part of it every single year, then it would be a really good thing for building that talent just nationally.
You bet. It's just come back to me, just the experience I had where I got to meet Puckett, world-renowned caster across multiple franchises and games, and no doubt a lead in bringing Overwatch League into its hype seasons of season 1 and 2 at Blizzard Arena, thanks to his enthusiasm. It was terrific to tell him and get to meet him just from the perspective as your former Overwatch caster and entertainer for the production, and just knowing his experience. Now he's currently does a lot of Halo, just with the newer game that's been out. So seeing him in New Zealand, getting that opportunity, this is the kind of stuff that I think anyone would be blessed to try and take up upon in New Zealand. And it's little moments like these where, if Overwatch isn't your game, at least what you can see is that the impact we can make as esports players, it has grown into a space now we can finally make that happen. Whether it's fiber, just better internet infrastructure, in many regions it's just growing internationally. But for us, we're very fortunate, and give us a shot and we can make that happen. We can try to be the very best to the point we could take on the world. I like that.
Yeah,
that's the narrative I've got coming into this season. So of course we'll definitely meet again. I think there's a chance we can have a little update as things get really deep into the Overwatch World Cup scenario. I really love your takes and your perspective on it this early on.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to be back on. Hopefully with some of the other committee members too. I've spoken to the other guys; they're fantastic, and I'd love to tell everyone more about what's going on, because really we got some great stuff cooking up, and I mean, I just, right now I'm hating the concept of time, because I want to do all these things now. I just want to be able to release this content, or to have the team ready, or to be, qualify already. All these things, I just want to get to them already, and I know that the fans do too. So we're gonna have to play that waiting game. But I'm really hopeful for our chances this year, and I can't wait to be back in the future. Especially with some other members of the committee, and maybe even some players, if we're that far down the line when we want to do another podcast.
Nah, you bet. So if anyone wants to go and check him out on Twitter, his name is Mince PMA. Nothing tells me more about this guy than the updates that he makes on behalf of New Zealand Overwatch World Cup. And hopefully, we might get a chance to get a few more of the committee or some players in the future. But it would be great to talk to you again. Hands down, I think this is a great opportunity to see how we go, and looking forward to the next couple of months.
Yeah, thank you very much, Obi.
No, thank you, Mince. So those of you who want to check us out, this will be re-uploaded with edited version over on Spotify. So you lucky sod, the one viewer here who's just wanted to check in on the stream, thank you so much. You can always check us out on Twitter at Ecopoint Podcast. You can send us an email with your thoughts or any feedback over at ecopointoverwatch@gmail.com. And we've got a Discord if you want to say hi there also. So thanks again. This was Obiwankenobi. I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.